He had no conscience. So he was not going to be rehabilitated, no matter who was working with him.
To the average person, killing and eating another human would not be considered a sane act. But according to Wisconsin's legal definition of sanity, if a person knows what they are doing is wrong but keep doing it anyway, they are classified as sane.
Dahmer definitely knew what he was doing, but he didn't care. He justified what he was doing by his own standards. He knew what was against the law.
I think after you kill a certain number of people, you've lost all track of morality. You no longer feel constrained by the morals that bind most of us.
Dahmer sat emotionless during the verdict before the judge and the families of the victims he'd killed and dismembered. He was judged to be sane and sentenced to life imprisonment on the 17th of February, 1992.
Someone asked me once, how many people do you have to kill and eat before you're insane in Milwaukee? I can say this, that everyone who knew Dahmer, and I think the most skilled psychiatrists, said Dahmer was sane. That is even more frightening than believing Dahmer was insane. I believe he was sane and tragically evil.
I felt that that was a just end for what he did. He needed to be removed from society forever, for the rest of his life. And I think that's what he should have got, and that's what he got.
Of course, we had 15 verdicts of guilty and 15 verdicts of sane while committing the crime. And then, of course, the sentence of the court was such that so long, 900 plus years, that he would never be released. When Dahmer went to the maximum security prison at Columbia, he came in contact with a minister or ministers and started reading the Bible and attending chapel there.
Faced with a life imprisonment, Dahmer turned to religion once again for comfort and possible salvation. Eventually, he asked local Church of Christ minister Roy Ratcliffe to come to the jail to baptize him.
After I agreed to baptize him, he heaved a deep sigh of relief because he was afraid that I would say, I can't baptize you because your sins are too grievous, your sins are too bad, your sins are unforgivable. Well, that violates everything I've ever believed, and I would never say that. Jesus Christ came to save sinners. Jeffrey Dahmer was a sinner, and it's as simple as that. It was our first Thanksgiving holiday that was coming up, and so he made a big deal about giving this card to me, and it was written out and so forth. He talked about how much he was grateful for all that I'd done for him and how thankful he was that I was in his life and I hadn't given up on him. The only emotion he ever had confessed to regarding his murders was love. It wasn't hatred at all. And I never saw a sense of malice or anger or hatred toward any of his victims at all.
In November 1993, 2 inmates were killed by delusional schizophrenic Christopher Scarver at the Columbia Correctional Institute. One was Jesse Anderson. The other was Jeffrey Dahmer.
Scarver got a piece of equipment off an exercise machine, crept up upon Dahmer, and bludgeoned him to death. And then crossed a gymnasium and bludgeoned to death Anderson.
He knew that he was going to be killed if he asked for the general population. And talking to the investigators said that the gentleman that was killed with him, Jesse Anderson, had all kinds of defensive marks where he tried to stop Carver. But Jeff Dahmer had no defensive marks on him, that all his strikes were from the beginning, from the head. And a very interesting thing, what I thought was interesting, was he was killed with a hand barbell, which is the same instrument he used to kill his very first victim.
He was a young man that I felt a friendship toward, and I'd lost a friend, and so I was very much in shock and disbelief about it at first.
I felt somewhat sorry for the man being beaten to death by another inmate. Didn't seem right. It's not supposed to be what happens in prison.
It did kind of shake me up a little bit. I don't know if this means I'm, not the macho guy I wanted to be, but I felt really conflicted about it. Because I had got to know him, I saw him as a very tragic figure. I guess I felt sad that he was dead because I don't believe anybody needs to die like that.
He died pretty brutally, but you can't say he didn't deserve it, but still. I think at that point it's probably a relief to him, I would think. That was no kind of life.
I was kind of elated. I was kind of happy. I'm like, well, good riddance. I'm glad it's over. That's the least he can do for me, for taking my friend. And he didn't deserve to live, you know, not after that.
Jeffrey Dahmer was cremated immediately, although his brain was removed at the request of his mother. She wanted the brain studied because she's trying to offset the belief that Lionel had suggested that somehow his brain was deformed. About a year later, the scientist involved with the brain decides there's no abnormality with his brain.
Was Dahmer's behavior simply down to nurture? Was Dahmer not born to kill?
No, I don't think he was born like that. I think it's environmental. And I disagree. I think anybody who in a young age is the victim of abject loneliness is probably going to have serious problems in life of one nature or another.
Did he choose evil? Yes. Was he an evil person? I can't say, and I wouldn't say that about anybody, especially after I spent so much time with him and saw parts of him that were very much like you and me. He had cares and loves and feelings like anybody else. Did he have some... I personally thought he was crazy. You'd have to be crazy to do what he did.
I don't think Dahmer was born to kill. I think Dahmer had the benefits of a good family, a basically good family, a decent area in which to be raised, educational opportunities. He chose not to accept them.
Whatever factors led to Dahmer's path of destruction, it will take the city of Milwaukee a long time to return to normality.
He scarred the city. He's done something that will probably take generations to heal, but for some people it'll never heal.